I'm Anastasia Chatzka. I'm a fashion designer, pattern maker, and sewing educator, and I'm so happy you're here sewing along with me today. Welcome to Sewing Anastasia, and today we are going to make high-waisted panties. The great thing about this project is that you don't need a serger. All you need is your regular sewing machine and a zigzag stitch. Now you can adjust the waist on these panties so you can make them really high, you can make them lower. So follow along and I'm going to show you how to make the easiest panties ever. If you're not already a subscriber to Sewing Anastasia, make sure you subscribe and hit that notification bell because I have new sewing videos that come out every single week. And if you're already a subscriber, thank you so much for following along. Also, I now teach sewing classes in my design studio in Chicago, Illinois, and virtually, so make sure you check those out at sewinganastasia.com. Supplies for creating these panties is super simple. You're going to need some really awesome fabric. I'm going to be using a stretch lace, so any fabric that stretches will be great. It could be a sheer, it could be a jersey, it could be a netting, it could be anything really. You just want to make sure it has some stretch to it. And you're going to need about half of a yard. You're also going to need some picot elastic or some elastic to sew around the edges. You're going to need some matching thread, or you could use contrasting. You're going to need your rotary cutter or scissors. You're also going to need a little piece of cotton for the crotch piece. Obviously, this is a lot of cotton, but you're really just going to need a little scrap of it. Because the pattern piece for the crotch is only this big, so you only need a cotton piece about this big. Speaking of pattern, you're going to need a 3-piece pattern. So I've got a 3-piece pattern here on my website, which you can download. And it comes in all the sizes for everybody, so it is size inclusive. So make sure you check that out at sewinganastasia.com. The first thing you want to do is cut out your paper pattern, and then we're going to place it on the fabric. You really want to make sure you're following your grain lines when you do this to make sure that the stretch is going across the body. Okay, so the stretch of my fabric is going horizontal here. So I want to make sure that that is perpendicular to my grain line. So that way the stretch is going across my body because the panty is up and down vertical on my body this way. So we want the stretch going across our body so that way we can get into the panties. And what do you do if your fabric is a 4-way stretch? Well, go ahead and just make sure that your grain line is lined up with your selvage of your fabric. Now this fabric is actually stretchier on the cross grain, so that's why I have it laid out perpendicular to the selvage. Now that we have it all laid out, we can cut it out, and they're all cut one. Now that we have all the lace pieces cut out, we're going to cut out the cotton piece for the crotch. So grab your crotch lining piece and we're going to cut it out of some cotton. I have my cotton laid out and I'm going to cut out my extra piece. Now that we have our panties all cut out, it should look something like this for you. So we have the front of our panty, we have the crotch of our panty and the lace and our cotton jersey, and then we have the back of our panty. So one of the first things we're going to do is sew the seam for the back to the crotch and then sew the seam for the front to the crotch, and then we're going to end up placing them right sides together and sewing up the sides. And then we have to sew on our elastic around the leg holes and around the waist. So we've got a little bit of work to do, so let's start sewing. So now that we have everything cut out, let's start sewing these panties together, and I'm gonna go over it step by step for you so you can make beautiful panties every single time. So let's step over to the sewing machine. The first thing we're gonna do is sew the seam at the back of the panties. Now we don't want a seam on the inside, so we don't want it to rub on us, so we're gonna place the right side of the lace to the right side of the back of the panties, and then we're gonna place the right side of the jersey liner to the wrong side of the panties here in the back. So we're sandwiching all 3 layers together, and you can go ahead and pin these together so they don't move on you. And we're gonna pin them along this curve. Now this curve at the back here just gives your panties a better fit. Sometimes I like to come to the other end and just pin up the other end. And then we can work out the rest of the fabric in the middle on the curve. Okay, so now we just need to line up these other pieces here. There we go. Now we have the cotton liner on that side and our lace on this side. Now the seam allowances on this pattern are 3/8 of an inch, so we're gonna sew from this end of the curve to that end of the curve over here. So today we're gonna be sewing with a broken zigzag stitch since we're sewing knit fabric. So make sure you have your zigzag stitch set, so you can use either a regular zigzag or a broken zigzag for this. Don't forget to back stitch. Make sure your fabric does not get stuck in your machine. Sometimes the knit wants to get sucked down in the machine. Just keep all your layers lined up as you're sewing. It's gonna be a little tricky with lace sometimes. Back stitch at the end and cut. Now that we have it sewn up, you have a nice finished edge on the outside, and then if we flip it, you have a nice finished edge on the inside as well. So for our next step, we want to take the right side of our purple lace here and place it to the right side of the purple lace on the crotch. And then what we want to do is roll up our panty here so we can fit it inside of this little spot. And now we're going to take the crotch lining piece and bring it to the other side and line it up. So that way, our panty now is inside of this crotch piece, but this is making sure that when we flip it out, we're also gonna have a finished edge like we did for the back of the panty. So we've got this little burrito method here. Make sure you have your zigzag stitch set up, and let's sew all these layers together. When you get to the end, back stitch and cut. Okay, so now that we have that seam sewn up, it's time to flip it right side out and check that out. Now we have a nice finished seam on the outside and a nice finished seam here on the inside. Next, we're gonna take the panty and place right sides together. And then what we're gonna do is match up these side seams and sew them up at 3/8 of an inch. So if you have a serger, you totally could have done those last two steps on your serger. And you can also sew up the side seams with your serger as well. But if you don't have a serger, you can go ahead and follow me and use a zigzag stitch. Don't forget to back stitch and work your way all the way down the seam. Mine got a little stuck here. Let's move it forward. Okay. So just be careful if you're working with a really open knit as well. Wouldn't hurt to put some seam tape here as well. Back stitch and cut. Now we're going to do the exact same thing to the other side here. And if you have a problem with your fabric getting stuck on the machine, you can always start with it back a little further than normal and then back stitch and then come forward. And then hold this little thread tail, give it a pull. Well, or your machine can completely eat it like mine just did. Okay, we'll pull that out. Let's try again. Okay, now we're gonna back stitch. Now we're gonna come forward. There we go. Now we're sewing. When you get to the bottom, back stitch and cut. So we have the panties all sewn up here and they're really starting to take shape. So let's turn them right side out and check them out. The back is looking great, and then we also have our front here looking great as well. So next what we want to do is grab our elastic and we're going to be attaching it to the waist and the leg openings. So I'm going to be using this plush back light pink elastic for the waist and the leg openings. So what we want to do is place it right side down on the right side of the fabric, and we're going to zigzag it all the way around the waist, making sure to overlap it just a little bit at the end. And then we're gonna flip it under and we're going to zigzag it down again. And then we'll end up with this nice little scalloped edge on the pink sticking out of the top of the panties and around the leg holes. So when I start this elastic, I'm gonna start at the side seam, work my way all the way around, and then I'm gonna overlap it about 1/2 of an inch right at the side seam here as well. So you want your zigzag to be as wide as your elastic, so test out a few stitches, see if it's the right width, and then once you have it, go ahead and continue. Now you don't really want to pull your elastic a bunch while you're doing this, otherwise your panties are going to get all scrunchy looking. So just go ahead and line it up with the edge, making sure you're not pulling it. Okay, I'm back to where I started. I'm going to cut my elastic so that way it's overlapping about 1/2 inch. And now I can go ahead and finish sewing it down. Just back stitch and cut. Now that we have the elastic sewn all the way around, we're going to take it and flip it to the inside, and we are going to sew from the top side of the panty, and we are going to zigzag that elastic down so that way it stays under. And I'm going to be using the same size zigzag stitch to do this. Don't forget to back stitch and work your way all the way around the waist of your panties. When you get to where you started, overlap your stitches just a little bit, back stitch and cut. The waist of the panties is looking great. I love that little edge here that pops out with the decorative elastic. And it's also made our waist nice and strong by putting that elastic up there. And it goes all the way around in a circle, and on the inside it looks like that with our zigzag stitches. You could use a matching thread here, but I used the contrasting thread so that way you could really see our double layer of zigzag stitches here. So these panties aren't going anywhere. The waist of the panties is looking great. I love that little edge here that pops out with the decorative elastic. And it's also made our waist nice and strong by putting that elastic up there. And it goes all the way around in a circle, and on the inside it looks like that with our zigzag stitches. You could use a matching thread here, but I used the contrasting thread so that way you could really see our double layer of zigzag stitches here. So here's the outside of the panties with the elastic sewn to it, and then here's the inside. Now we're going to sew the elastic to the opening of the leg hole here. So go ahead and start at your side seam here. And remember, it's right side of the elastic on the right side of the fabric. And we're going to sew all the way around, overlapping just 1/2 inch at the side seam there. And then we're going to flip it to the inside and zigzag it down one more time. Grab your elastic and let's attach it to the leg openings. And remember, we're going to do this the exact same way we just did the waist. So let's work our way all the way around the leg opening. Now we're going to flip it under and zigzag it one more time. When you get to the end, overlap your stitches and back stitch and cut. We did it! We finished our high-waisted panties and they are looking so professional and beautiful. So let's try them on the dress form and check them out. Look at how cute these panties look on. I just love this elastic and this fabric. It's so beautiful. You can see the fit now on the leg. And we've got our side seams here. And then this panty goes under the butt, so it's got a nice coverage here. And then you can see it's high-waisted all the way up to the natural waistline. And again, if you don't want your panties that high, super easy fix. Just go ahead and cut the pattern down as low as you would like it. Look at how beautiful these panties are with this nice elastic around the edge and the waist. We have the lined crotch piece in here. And again, you can see the purple stitching here because I wanted you to see what I was doing, but I would go ahead and do a matching bobbin so that way you don't see that purple stitching when you're creating them. And then I would say these panties could be from La Perla or Agent Provocateur or any beautiful high-end lingerie store, but now you can make them yourself. Thank you for watching Sew Anastasia today and learning how to make high-waisted panties with my custom designed panty pattern. I love making these panties. They are so fast and easy to make, and they're so luxurious and high-end and so easy. How can you not love that? No more spending $150 on panties when you can choose your own fabrics and make them yourself. So don't forget, you can also download that pattern at sewanastasia.com under digital downloads. If you have any questions about making this pair of panties, make sure you leave it down below and I will get back with you as soon as possible. And I would love to know what kind of fabrics you like to work with when making your panties, so also leave that down below in the comments as well. Let's get a conversation started about panties. And what waistline do you like to wear them at? Do you like them higher? Do you like them lower? Do you like thongs? Do you like boy shorts? Do you like boxers? What do you like to wear? I would love to know, and that way I can create some patterns for them. And don't forget to subscribe to Sew Anastasia and hit that notification bell so you know when all the new videos come out every single week. And if you're already a subscriber, thank you so much for watching. And make sure you follow me on Instagram and Facebook and TikTok and Twitter and all those other social media websites so that way we can stay connected and creative together. Thanks so much for watching. Bye.